I came home for Thanksgiving. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No smell of turkey. No music. No chaos in the kitchen. Just silence. Then I saw him. Her stepfather, Gerald, was sitting in my favorite chair, the old wooden rocker by the fireplace, rocking like he had all the time in the world. He looked straight through me, that cloudy one-eyed stare, like he'd been expecting me. I dropped my bag. "Where's Madison?" I asked. He didn't say a word, just nodded toward the kitchen table. A note, written in her swirling, smug cursive. "Gone on a cruise with my ex-boyfriend. You'll stay home and take care of stepdad. He needs you." My hand shook, but not from the cold. The audacity. The filth of it. She left me. On Thanksgiving. For her ex left me with him. A man she barely even spoke to at family dinners. A man who now sat there with a grin like he was in on the joke. I turned to him. He opened one eye. "Shall we begin?" he said. I stood there frozen. I didn't even know what that meant. Begin what? Some twisted game? Or just the humiliation of living in the mess she left behind? I nodded. I don't even know why. I think I was in shock. 6 days later, she was back, banging on the door like a lunatic. But that's another part of the story. Let me take you back before she left, to how I found out she was already gone long before that cruise. It started a month earlier. Madison, my wife of 6 years, had started spending more time at the gym. A lot more. Not that I cared at first. I wanted her to be happy, confident. But then came the lipstick stains on coffee mugs she never used, perfume that smelled like it was for clubbing, not cardio, and constant texting she'd always hide when I walked into the room. One night, she got home late. Hair messy, makeup smudged like she'd reapplied it halfway through the night. I asked where she'd been. "Spin class," she said. At 11:30 p.m. I knew she was lying, but I swallowed it. I didn't want to be that husband. The paranoid, insecure type. But deep down, something was rotting. And it wasn't just our marriage. Then came the text. A dumb accident. She left her phone charging in the kitchen. I was getting a bottle of water when it lit up. A message preview from someone saved as M. "Same room again tonight? Bring that black dress. You looked unreal in it." My chest dropped. I unlocked the phone. Hundreds of messages. Not just this, M. There were pictures. Videos. Things no married woman should be sending another man, unless that marriage meant nothing. She had a whole second life I knew nothing about. She lied about business trips that were actually hotel nights with this guy. She lied about brunch with her mom, who's been dead for 2 years. She even lied about being allergic to seafood. Turns out, she just didn't want me to take her to seafood restaurants because he worked at one. She was living a lie, and I was financing it. I didn't confront her right away. I needed a plan. Needed to know how deep the betrayal went. So I waited. Observed. Tracked her calendar. Took notes. Even visited that seafood place once, saw him. Tall. Muscular. Covered in tattoos. Looked like the kind of guy who probably thinks reading a menu is a waste of time. The kind of guy who takes what he wants and doesn't apologize after. And she chose him. Over me. Thanksgiving was supposed to be our reset. That's what she told me the week before. "Let's make the holidays special," she said. "Let's do something different." Yeah, different meant abandoning me with a man she never even liked, so she could sail away with the same man she once called a mistake. Now I was alone in the house I paid for, feeding soup to her one-eyed stepfather, who told me bedtime stories about how Madison used to lock herself in closets and scream when she didn't get her way. She hadn't changed much. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse. Gerald looked at me after dinner that night and said, "You know, she told me you'd never find out. That you were too stupid to connect the dots." That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of heartbreak, but out of rage. The kind that simmers low and silent until it's ready to boil. The next morning, I sat in the kitchen staring at her empty mug. The same one she used every morning, even before talking to me. Now it sat there like a relic of a lie. Gerald snored from the couch. I should have hated the guy, but truthfully, he was more honest than she ever was. At least he didn't fake love. At least he didn't pretend. Around noon, the silence was shattered. A loud knock on the front door, followed by banging, then muffled yelling. It was her. Madison. She wasn't supposed to be back for another 2 days, but there she was, hair messy, wearing that cheap cruise ship hoodie, her suitcase rolling behind her like nothing happened. Like she hadn't abandoned me to rot with her stepfather while she enjoyed sunsets with a man who didn't even know how to spell loyalty. "Open the damn door, Michael," she screamed. I didn't move. She pounded again. "I know you're home. Don't be childish. Let me explain." "Explain?" I finally opened the door. Slowly. Calmly. She looked surprised to see me calm. I think she expected tears. Or shouting. But I was past that. You're back early, I said. Her eyes darted past me, looking for Gerald. Look, I didn't mean it like that. It was just a break. I needed clarity. On a cruise. I asked. She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. It wasn't like that. I didn't say a word. Just turned and walked back into the house. She followed, closing the door behind her like it was still her home. Like she still belonged here. Michael, come on. Are you really going to let one trip ruin 6 years of marriage? One trip, I said, laughing. You think this was just one trip? You've been lying for months. I know about Matt. I know about the hotels. I saw the texts. She went pale for half a second, then recovered fast. Like a true actress. Oh, so you went through my phone? That's rich. Invading my privacy now? That's when I realized who I was talking to. Not my wife. Not the woman I'd build a home with. This was someone else. A stranger. A selfish, manipulative stranger in expensive perfume. I didn't cheat on you, she said flatly. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? I replied. Then who's Matt? Who's been booking hotel rooms under your maiden name? Who calls you at 2 a.m. while you're at spin class? She didn't even try to deny it this time. Just sighed like I was exhausting her. You always want everything to be black and white, she said. People are complicated. Relationships are complicated. Loyalty isn't complicated. She stared at me. For a second, I thought maybe there was guilt behind her eyes. But it wasn't guilt. It was calculation. She walked into the kitchen, sat at the table like nothing happened, and grabbed an apple from the bowl. You know, she said between bites, he listens to me. He makes me feel alive. You're so stuck in routine. You're predictable. Safe. Boring. I stood there, watching her eat like she hadn't just shattered my soul into pieces. You think I care about that, she added. Do you know how many women settle for men like you and fake smiles for the rest of their lives? I didn't ask you to settle, I said. You begged me to marry you. That struck something. Her jaw clenched for a second. You begged me, I repeated. On your knees in that damn restaurant. I still have the photo. Her face twisted. Yeah, and I regret it, she spat. I thought you were different. I thought you'd become something bigger. Instead, you're just a man who plays house and thinks that's enough. I didn't hit back. I didn't yell. I just reached into the drawer, pulled out the envelope I'd prepared the night before, and slid it across the table. She looked at it, confused. Then she opened it. Inside, divorce papers. She blinked. Wait, you're serious? I nodded. You're not even going to fight for this? She asked. There's nothing left to fight for, I said. She stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. You think you're punishing me? She said, suddenly defensive. You think you'll be fine without me? I'll be fine. I have options. You're the one who's going to end up alone. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair, walked to the door, and held it open. Good, I said. Being alone sounds peaceful. She stormed out without another word, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there for a long time, staring at the space she'd just occupied. No tears. No shaking hands. Just a quiet ache that felt like it had been there for months. I'd just been too numb to notice. I sat back down across from Gerald, who hadn't moved much since the morning. She gone? He asked. Yeah, I muttered. He nodded like he'd seen this whole thing unfold before. Like it wasn't the first time she'd pulled something like this. Maybe not even the second. She always had a temper, he added, reaching slowly for his glass of water. But she knew how to get what she wanted. Her mama taught her that. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Every word coming out of his mouth felt like confirmation of everything I'd been trying not to believe for the last few years. That night, I lay in bed alone for the first time in years. No sound of her brushing her teeth. No perfume lingering in the air. No passive-aggressive sighs. Just silence and a weight on my chest I couldn't shake. I should have seen it coming. All the canceled date nights. All the fake fights she'd start just so she could storm out and clear her head. All the times she turned her phone over when I walked into the room. I replayed it all like a sick movie on loop. And somehow, I still couldn't believe the ending. 3 days later, I started to breathe normally again. That's when the calls began. First from her. Then from unknown numbers. Then from friends, her friends. I ignored them all. She texted, too. I overreacted. We both made mistakes. Can we talk like adults? She even tried using guilt. You left Gerald alone. What kind of man does that? As if I hadn't cared for the man like he was my own father. As if she hadn't dumped him on me like a dog at a shelter so she could sip cocktails on a boat with the same loser she used to cry about. By day 5, she showed up again. No suitcase this time. Just a hoodie and her phone clutched like a lifeline. I didn't open the door. She knocked for over 10 minutes. Then silence. Then her voice, trembling. Michael, please. I made a mistake. He wasn't who I thought he was. It was stupid. I was stupid. I stayed on the couch, out of sight. I came back early because I realized what I had. I realized who you are. Still, I didn't move. I miss you, she whispered, her voice cracking. And that was when the strange part hit me. I believed she missed me. But not the way someone misses love. Not the way someone misses a person. She missed the comfort. The security. The version of me that worshipped her and didn't question things. But that version of me was dead. I waited until I heard her car pull away before I finally stood and looked out the window. She sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel like she was holding back a breakdown. And for a brief second, I almost opened the door. Almost. But then I thought of the note. Gone on a cruise with my ex-boyfriend. You'll stay home and take care of stepdad. He needs you. And I remembered how easy it was for her to discard me like garbage. How she didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye when she left. Just a damn piece of paper and her old man rocking in my chair. The next day, I booked an appointment with a lawyer. The day after that, I changed the locks. By the 6th day, I was no longer hers. And that's when she really started begging. She came back wearing a face I hadn't seen in years. No makeup. Puffy eyes. Hair tied back like she didn't even care how she looked. Like she wanted me to believe she was raw, real, broken. But I'd seen her perform before. I knew the script. This time, I opened the door. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to look her in the eyes when I told her she didn't live here anymore. She stepped inside before I could say a word. Walked past me like the house was still hers. Like nothing had changed. I know I screwed up, she said, standing in the hallway, fingers trembling slightly. But you can't just erase everything. You erased it, I said, calmly. You took a knife to it and signed the note with a smirk. She winced. Not because it hurt, because she didn't expect me to say it that way. Michael, she whispered, walking closer. Please. I've been sick over this. He wasn't even worth it. I was drunk. Confused. Drunk doesn't explain months of sneaking around, I snapped. Drunk doesn't book hotel rooms under your maiden name. Drunk doesn't pack a suitcase and leave me with your stepdad like I'm some damn babysitter. Her lip quivered, but no tears came. She wasn't the crying type. Not unless she thought she could win with it. She reached out, fingers brushing my arm. I stepped back. Don't, I said. That stopped her. She stood there in the middle of the living room, looking around like it felt different. Maybe because it was. Maybe because for once she wasn't in control. I didn't sleep with him, she said suddenly. A lie. A big, ugly one. And the worst part? She said it like she actually believed I'd buy it. You want points for that? I asked. No. I just thought it would make you feel better. I laughed. Out loud. For the first time since this nightmare started. You think saying you didn't sleep with him fixes this? I said. That it makes you less of a coward? Less of a liar. She bit her lip. Finally looked cornered. But she still tried to shift it. You were never there, Michael. You were always working. Always tired. Always stressed. I felt invisible. And your solution was to disappear? She went silent. You didn't want a partner. You wanted an audience, I said. You wanted someone to clap when you smiled and shut up when you frowned. That's not true. No, I said, walking to the table and picking up the divorce envelope again. Then why'd you take a vacation from your marriage? Why'd you turn our life into a backup plan? She didn't answer. She just stood there, breathing heavily. You know, I added, Gerald said something funny while you were gone. She blinked. What? He said you told him I was too stupid to figure it out. She flinched. I guess you were half right, I said. I was stupid. For loving you. Madison looked down, then sat slowly on the edge of the couch like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. I miss you, she whispered. I miss us. There is no us, I replied. Just you and whatever mask you decide to wear. She looked up, and this time her eyes were full. Real tears. I'll change, she said. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut him off. I'll do anything. I don't want your change, I said. I want peace. She stood. Stepped toward me again. I can give you peace, she said. Just one more chance. Please. Just one. I looked at her. Really looked. The same eyes that used to light up when I walked in the room now begged like a child locked outside in the rain. And still, I said, No. Then I opened the door. She stood frozen for a moment. Then, slowly, she stepped through. She didn't cry. Not in front of me. But as she reached the bottom of the porch steps, I saw her knees buckle for half a second. The door clicked shut behind her. And for the first time in months, I exhaled without shaking. That night, I sat on the floor of the living room with the fireplace lit and a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving for a celebration that never came. No TV. No music. Just the sound of crackling wood and the quiet echo of what used to be a marriage. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. At some point, Gerald shuffled into the room, wrapped in an old throw blanket like some kind of ghost from a forgotten family photo. He lowered himself into the rocking chair, his knees cracking like old branches. "She's gone?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Yeah," I said. He nodded, slow and deliberate, like he'd been waiting for that confirmation to close a chapter in his own mind. "I always knew she'd mess it up," he said after a while. "That girl, she don't know how to love. Only knows how to be wanted." I didn't respond. "Her mother was the same way," he added. "Beautiful, loud, addicted to attention, but empty as a broken vase inside." I poured another glass, let the silence sit between us for a long stretch. Then I finally asked, "Why didn't you warn me?" He looked over at me, one eye cloudy and tired. "Would you have listened?" "No, probably not. When you're in love with someone like Madison, logic dies first. You tell yourself lies just to keep the illusion alive. You ignore the flags. You rewrite the story to make her the victim of something you're not even guilty of. You blame yourself, just because it's easier than accepting the truth." "She'll come back," Gerald said suddenly, voice low. "I know," I replied. "What you gonna do when she does?" "I already did it." He nodded again, like I'd passed some silent test. The next morning, I dropped him off at a friend's place in the city. He didn't say goodbye, just nodded and closed the car door behind him. I watched him walk up the sidewalk, hunched but steady. I drove home in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car parked across the street. She was sitting inside, sunglasses on, pretending to scroll through her phone like she just happened to be in the neighborhood. I didn't even glance at her. Just walked to the front door and disappeared inside. She stayed there for hours, waiting, like I might change my mind. Like the man she buried under 6 years of lies might come crawling back out to beg for her touch. But I didn't, because that man doesn't exist anymore. That night, I opened my laptop and finally clicked send on the email to the divorce attorney. Attached to all the paperwork. Clicked the checkbox, irreconcilable differences. And for once, the term didn't feel vague. It felt precise. Final. A week passed. Then 2. I started sleeping again. Deep, dreamless sleep. I cleaned out the closet. Boxed up her stuff. Donated most of it. Some nights she'd still call. Leave voicemails that started calm and spiraled into desperation. Then rage. Then silence. One night, she left a message at 3:12 a.m. "You think you're better than me now? You think this makes you stronger? You're nothing without me." I deleted it without listening to the end. Because she was wrong. I was everything without her. And I was just getting started. A month later, the final envelope arrived. Stamped, sealed, legal. The last trace of her in my life reduced to a few dry words on heavy paper. Dissolution of marriage. Just like that. The end of something I thought would last forever. I didn't feel relief. Not exactly. It was something quieter. Like setting down a weight you'd been carrying so long you forgot what lightness felt like. I stared at my name, Michael D. Carter, no longer tethered to hers. No hyphen, no joint account, no shared home. Just me. A week after that, her new boyfriend, Matt, called me. I hadn't expected that. Blocked number. "Mike," the voice said. "Look, man, I don't want any problems." I leaned back in my chair. "Then why are you calling me?" "She told me you were threatening her. Stalking her. Showing up at her work." Look, I'm trying to be civil here." I actually laughed. So that was the next move. When the begging didn't work, the lies returned. "Let me make something clear, Matt," I said. "I haven't called her. I haven't gone near her. The only stalking that's happening is probably from your passenger seat. Ask her how long she's been parking across from my house." Silence. Then, she told me she was trying to apologize. I chuckled again. "You think that woman apologizes? She doesn't even know what that word means." Click. He hung up. It was almost sad. Almost. He didn't know yet. He was where I was a year ago, lost in the sparkle, too blind to see the cracks. That's when it hit me. He wasn't my enemy. He was just the next chapter in her pattern. And soon, she'd do to him what she did to me. Maybe worse. She was addicted to destruction, and he was just her latest hit. Let him learn. I started fixing things around the house. Repainting the bedroom. Replacing the curtains she picked that always made the place feel like a hotel room. I even tore out the kitchen backsplash she insisted on installing because it looked like Pinterest. I replaced it with something simple. Something mine. Friends started coming back around. They pulled away when things got bad, when I turned into a ghost version of myself. But now they were texting again, inviting me out, checking in. One night, I went to dinner with an old friend, Rachel, from college. Nothing serious. Just food, laughs, and stories we hadn't told in years. It felt real, easy, honest. And when I dropped her off, I realized I hadn't thought of Madison once during the entire evening. That was the moment. That's when I knew I was free. It didn't come with fireworks. No dramatic montage or cinematic epiphany. Just silence. Peaceful, beautiful silence. Months passed. Then one day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside, a single sheet of paper. I thought I could replace you. I was wrong. I thought I'd be happier. I'm not. You were the only man who ever tried to truly love me. I'm sorry. For everything. M. No request to talk. No phone number. No guilt trip. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it once, dropped it into the fireplace, and watched it turn to ash. Some people never change. And some of us finally learn how to stop waiting for them to. That's what I'd tell any man reading this, living through the same quiet hell I once did. You don't owe her forgiveness. You don't owe her a second chance. You owe yourself peace. And once you choose that, you win. Every time. Spring arrived like it was made just for me. The cold, heavy days were over, not just outside, but inside me. I opened the windows for the first time in months and let fresh air fill the room she used to poison with her presence. The sunlight looked different now. Warmer. Real. I planted flowers in the backyard. I'd never done that before. Madison used to say I didn't have patience for things that grow. Funny how I found plenty of patience once she was gone. One morning, I was sipping black coffee on the porch, barefoot, in silence, when I saw her again. Not in front of my house this time. Across the street, further down. Standing on the corner, talking to someone. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but in presence. The storm she once brought with every entrance was gone. Now, she looked like a woman trying hard to be relevant in a world that had moved on without her. She didn't notice me. Or maybe she did and pretended not to. That was her way. I watched her for a moment. She laughed, too loud, too forced. Then she walked away. And I felt nothing. No bitterness. No ache. Just quiet. Like watching an old movie you used to love, only to realize it aged terribly and the acting was never that good to begin with. A week later, Rachel called. Not a text. A real call. Hey, I know it's last minute, she said, but a friend of mine dropped out of this little cabin weekend trip. Just a group of people, food, hiking, nothing dramatic. Want to come? I paused. Not because I didn't want to, but because it had been so long since someone offered me something that didn't have strings attached. Yeah, I said. I like that. And I meant it. Up there, in the woods, with no cell signal and no clocks, I remembered who I was before the lies. Before the manipulation. Before Madison turned love into a chess game. I remembered laughing without checking if someone was judging. I remembered what it felt like to sleep beside someone who didn't make me feel like I had to earn every moment of peace. Rachel and I sat by a fire one night, not saying much. Just sipping wine, listening to the night hum. And she leaned her head on my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. No rush. No pressure. Just presence. After the weekend, we didn't talk about what it meant. We didn't need to. Some things unfold when they're ready. Back home, I found a voicemail waiting for me. From Madison. Again. This time, her voice was low. Hello. I ran into your sister, she said. She told me you're doing well. I'm glad, I guess. I just wanted to say I still think about us. About what we had. I know you won't call back. I just needed to say it out loud. Delete. Not out of cruelty. But because I didn't live there anymore. Not in that world. Not in that past. It had become a foreign country, and I had no desire to visit. I was building something new. Something real. And every brick I laid. Every sunrise I woke up to. Every small, quiet joy I embraced without shame or second-guessing, that was my revenge. Not bitterness. Not vengeance. Just living well. Better than I ever had with her. Better than I ever thought possible. Summer came fast. The house was finally mine in every sense. My books on the shelves, my music in the speakers, my rhythm in the walls. The ghosts were gone. No perfume laced into the couch cushions. No echo of slammed doors or fake laughter lingering in the hallways. One morning I woke up early. No alarm, just instinct. I brewed coffee, stepped outside barefoot, and watched the sun creep up over the edge of the rooftops. It was quiet. Not empty. Not lonely. Just quiet. I picked up my phone and scrolled past her name in the blocked list. I never unblocked it. Because some things, when broken, don't deserve repair. They serve a different purpose. They become a reminder of how far you've come, of how far you'll never fall again. Later that day, I stopped by my sister's place to help her move furniture. She hugged me longer than usual, looked me in the eye, and said, "I'm proud of you." That stuck with me. Not because I needed validation, but because for the first time in a long time, someone saw me. Not as a fool. Not as a background character in someone else's drama. But as a man who stood through a storm and refused to break. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing again. Something I hadn't done since long before the lies began. I wrote about truth. About betrayal. About starting over. And for the first time, it wasn't rage guiding my words. It wasn't pain. It was clarity. Strength. The kind that comes after the collapse, when you realize you're still standing, still breathing, and more yourself than you ever were before. A few weeks later, Rachel and I went on another trip. Mountains this time. No plans, no deadlines. Just long walks, long talks, and silence that felt full instead of heavy. We watched the stars one night, side by side, no words between us. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it. Not because I needed saving, but because I was already whole. Madison never called again. Never showed up. Maybe she found another man to drain. Maybe she finally looked in the mirror and saw what she'd become. Or maybe she just faded out, like every hollow thing eventually does. Either way, she became irrelevant. She was a lesson, a scar I carry with no shame. If you're reading this hoping for justice or some twisted revenge, let me tell you this. The best revenge is indifference. The best closure is peace. And the best way to win is to walk away and never look back. I didn't get even. I got free. And in the end, that was more than enough.